What's up? I want to talk about something that I've come to firmly believe, but that I think a lot of people would subconsciously reject or really just haven't even considered at all. And that is that I would rather be poor and free and in control of what I'm doing than be rich but have all of my time be out of my control and have my income and my ability to sustain myself be the responsibility of somebody else. So, in this channel, I've talked a lot about how I'm trying to become, self-employed and then eventually start my own business. But my primary goal is to become self-employed within the next 9 months because I just absolutely loathe the idea of having to work a 9 to 5. I'm just not compatible with it. Like, I can't do it. The idea of doing it for 40 years is like a personal hell for me. Like, I'm not gonna, I don't know how, or I don't care how I make it happen. Like, I'm not gonna do that, dude. And the main reason, well, there's several reasons, but one of the strongest reasons why I have such a strong conviction on this topic is because I value my personal freedom and the ability to decide how I'm spending my time as like a top priority. And if you have a 9 to 5 job, your free time is extremely restricted. And really, you have functionally no free time at all during the periods of the day when you'd actually want to go out and do stuff. If you're working a 9 to 5, you're waking up early in the morning. Some people wake up early and go to the gym. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I'm more of a night owl, so I guess they just go to sleep earlier than me. Um, that's evidenced by the fact that I'm recording this at like 12:30 in the morning. But anyway, you wake up early, you sit through rush hour traffic, you go to your job, you work minimum 8 hours there. Oftentimes it's more, if you have to stay and fix something at work, something goes wrong, you have to spend overtime. Then you come back in rush hour traffic. And then, what time is it? 6 o'clock, maybe 6:30, maybe even 7. Like, what are you gonna do? You still need to make dinner. You still need to, do your chores and stuff when you get home. You basically have no free time on account of the fact that the most active hours of the day were just eaten up by this job that you're at that you probably don't even like. And moreover, the only time that you get, a full day of free time is Saturday. So I don't include Sunday because Sunday, you can't stay up as late as you need to. You can't, go out and party because you've got Monday the next day. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I've always dreaded Sunday. Like, Sunday is probably the worst day of the week for me because all Sunday means is that I am having to do stuff in preparation for Monday. Like at school, Sunday was always the day I would be going to the library to study because I knew I had some shit to do on Monday and I had to get it done. So really, I don't even remember the last time I was able to fully enjoy a Sunday, which is pretty sad. But all of that just goes to my point of the only day that you really have to rest and relax and do stuff fully on your own volition, in my opinion, is Saturday. You could argue Sunday, but really what you do on Sunday is in some way going to be constrained by what you have to do on Monday, which guess what? It's work. It's show up to your 9 to 5, buddy. And so if you're the sort of person who's entrepreneurial or even just has some project that they want to seriously and earnestly work on the side, a 9 to 5 is going to be completely anti-parallel to your goal of trying to accomplish that. A 9 to 5 is going to be squarely in the way of you doing that, of you starting your own business, of you picking up a project, of you doing any of that, because it's going to completely eat up your time and suffocate the little free time that you have. And so that's the reason really why I personally find a 9 to 5 intolerable, and it's just something I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid, because no matter how much money you're making, you could be making 200K, 300K, doesn't matter. Throw out some arbitrary number. You could be making all that money, but you are still not free temporally. Your time is still restricted. You are still exchanging your freedom and hours of your day, big blocks of your day, for money. And you can rationalize it however you want. You can make as much money and you can say, there's some threshold where I find it acceptable and I can tolerate it. But that's all you're ever going to do is you're going to tolerate it. Maybe you're one of these people that genuinely enjoys your job, but that's got to be like a vanishingly small percentage of people, dude. That's got to be like 1%. For most people, the best you can really hope for is tolerating your job. And so if you get to some monetary threshold where you say, I can tolerate this, I can tolerate exchanging my time and my freedom for money at a fixed rate, then good for you, dude. But that's not something I can do. I value having the agency to decide how I'm spending my time, what I'm spending it on, far too much than to just reach some point where, whether it's 100K or 150K or whatever, and say, yeah, I'm okay with signing away all my free time to this job that I hate because, it makes enough money that I can live fairly comfortably and I can just kind of become numb to it and accept the bad parts of the job and just sort of put up with it because, it's a decent living. Like, no, dude, that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm sorry. I value the freedom to take my life in the direction that I want it to too much for those terms to be acceptable to me, because I want to be able to work on what I want to work on. I want to be able to have my own business, to be self-employed, to be able to wake up in the morning and be like, what do I want to spend my time working on? If you have a job, if you have a 9 to 5, that question is answered for you 5 days out of the week for however many weeks you're alive until you're in your 60s or your 70s. Like, you don't wake up any day and be like, what do I want to spend my time on? What do I want to work on? You don't wake up thinking, wow, I'm really, I have something I'm actually excited about. Like, I have something I want to wake up early and start earlier on because it excites me so much. Nobody with a 9 to 5 has that, dude. And they might make more money than me, but that doesn't matter, because if I'm self-employed, if I'm working for myself, if I have my own business, I have something that they're never going to have. First of which is the freedom of time and the freedom to delegate my time however I please. And the second thing is that when I'm waking up with the intention of working on something that genuinely fulfills me and genuinely is working towards advancing my future and making my life better. You could wake up 5 days a week for 52 weeks out of the year for 40 years, and your work is going to go towards improving the profit margins of the company you work at. Unless you're working at, a really rare company that actually is doing something to benefit the world, then you are not going to be investing your time in something other than getting a salary back to subsist your lifestyle. There's no, I've talked about this before. The upside is strictly bounded when you work a 9 to 5. The upside is bounded by what your employer is willing to offer you. When you're working for yourself, you might make less money, but the upside of where you can take it is completely unbounded. When you're in charge of the income that you're making, for better or worse, the outcome and the output of the effort you put in is completely unbounded. And what that means is that if you put in more effort, it's not guaranteed, but it's possible that you could exceed and succeed in ways that you never could when you're stuck with a normal job. And so, I recognize that what I'm saying isn't for everyone, but what I also want people to recognize is that the vast majority of people that are working the 9 to 5 jobs hate it. It's not that they just, don't like it or there's some parts that they find disagreeable. Most people hate their job, dude. And if you don't believe me, you just got to look around and see, are people excited to be driving? I'll give an example. I'm in California right now. I look around in the morning. Are any of us excited to be driving on the 405 at, 8:15 in the morning? Hell no. Almost everybody would rather be asleep or doing anything else than being in their car driving on the 405 in rush hour traffic. And so, people might be content with their job, but they're certainly not happy with all the circumstances that their job places them in. And so that's what I'm getting at, dude, is you got to make a choice of what matters to you. What are you going to prioritize, and what do you want to get out of life? If what you want to get out of life is stability and just making enough money to be comfortable, then go ahead and take the 9 to 5, but that's not it for me. I don't care about stability. I care about freedom and agency and having the opportunity, having the hope to be able to pursue something that I'm fully in charge of and that it's up to me whether I fail or succeed. That's the whole thing I talk about when I'm talking about, financial independence. Financial independence doesn't necessarily mean financial success, but it means that you are the primary driver of whether or not you're succeeding financially. Financial dependence, conversely, is the exact opposite of that. It's saying, you know, if your job disappears tomorrow, you're screwed, dude. Like, you're gonna have to find another job because you can't sustain yourself on your own economically. And if you look at how these companies are just firing people left and right and replacing them with AI, I think this is one of the worst times since the Industrial Revolution to be a financially dependent person. It's not like the stability that I'm talking about that a 9 to 5 is supposed to offer. It is much less certain now because these companies are vapid and they are willing to do whatever they can to increase their profit margins. And if that means, hey, we're laying off 25% of our workforce and you're getting replaced with Claude, then, you know, see you, buddy, you're gone. The CEO is not going to think twice about that. And so I really feel like with how difficult the economy is and with how poor of an offer most 9 to 5s are at this point, this should be the easiest time in forever to make the choice that you want to be self-employed, that you want to be in charge of your own destiny, both, you know, with what you're working on and then just strictly in the economic sense. And that's why I think I was able to come to the decision that this is what I want to prioritize. This is what I want to work towards, is because, you know, if what a 9 to 5 could offer was more alluring or it made more sense to actually invest time into, maybe I would do it. But if you look at it and really evaluate it objectively, it is a terrible deal and there's nothing really good you can get out of it. And so if you have the chance to pursue anything else, I don't see why you wouldn't. But yeah, I mean, that brings me to the end of my thoughts in this video. I really just wanted to explain why I prioritize freedom and the agency to decide how I spend my time and what I spend it on over monetary success. Because, you know, you might think that you have a nice stable income with a 9 to 5, but that's not how shit works anymore. And even if you are able to have stability, it's really at the cost of your spirit and your soul. And so I'd rather, you know, I'd rather be on a knife's edge, keeping myself employed, keeping myself afloat, even if it's difficult and even if it's not as materially successful, but keep that door open to future success, future projects, and being in charge of, you know, am I going to be able to eat? Am I going to be able to have housing next month? And not have that be delegated to some company whose CEO is literally frothing at the mouth to replace you with AI. But that's what I wanted to talk about. That concludes my remarks. But I do want to say I'm speaking about how I want to be self-employed and starting a business. I have a tutoring business. If anybody needs, or you or anybody you know need help with math, I do math tutoring for high school level, ACT and SAT prep, and university level math. So if that's applicable to you or anybody you know, go to my website in the description and let's get a free consultation. You know, meet with me. We can figure out how I need to help you and we can get stuff going. We can get things in motion. So go to www.kehrtutoring.com. That's KUEHR tutoring.com. Go there today if you need help with math, get a free consultation, and let's get to work. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. That's the end of this video. Have a good one.